Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 6th episode of What's the Game Plan, presented by Unmasked. My name is Lamar Barrett, and I am the creator of the podcast and docuseries Unmasked. Being a former high school and college coach for more than 22 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes as a college basketball coach. Unmasked was created for the basketball fan that wants to know the behind-the-scenes activities that go on as a college coach. For the young aspiring coaches that wants to get into the profession, but thinks coaching is what they see on TV when coaches are wearing the shiny suit. And for the profession that can take tidbits to better their career in their field of work. Tonight's What's the Game Plan episode will be unmasking the interview process. The creator of What's the Game Plan and moderator for tonight's Roundtable is Carolyn Smalls. Carolyn hails from Long Island, New York, and she attended Salisbury University. So we actually have a special guest, a panelist tonight, who is the head coach at Salisbury, and we'll talk about that later, in Salisbury, Maryland. She currently resides in Baltimore, Maryland, and teaches physical education in Howard County Public Schools in Howard County, Maryland. And she's also completing her master's degree and coaching basketball at the grassroots level for the Maryland-based AAU Team United Basketball Club. And she's an aspiring women's college basketball coach. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome to the show the moderator for the night, Carolyn Smalls.
Thank you, Lamar. I mean, every time I feel like I need you in my pocket just to like hype me up every time I got to do something big. I just want to say thank you all for being here. As always, especially thank you to our 3 coaches that we have on tonight. Really excited to just pick your brain and ask some questions. But as Lamar said, I'm just going to give a little more background into why I wanted to start What's the Game Plan. Through the pandemic, I've been on a lot of Zooms with a lot of coaches on the men's side, and I've been really getting to know them, but wanted to kind of venture into the women's side because that's hopefully where I'll be coaching in the next few years. So I wanted to make connections, learn, and just really pick female coaches' brains. So that is why I wanted to, start What's the Game Plan. So I'm really excited with how far it's come, and really excited for our evening tonight. Like we said, we have 3 great coaches on tonight: Coach Green, Coach Stafford-Odom, and Coach Basco. If you all want to introduce yourself, Coach Green, if you want to go first, that would be great. Just give us a little introduction, how you got into coaching and where you are now, and then we'll get into the questions. Coach, you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
So how I got into coaching, I never thought I would actually be a coach. I was pursuing my graduate degree, and at the end, I was doing my internship with the Charlotte Bobcats, working in the front office. And I realized I did not enjoy the 9 to 5 as much as I did going to the games at night. And I found myself coming up with strategies, late game plays. And at that point, I was like, I think I want to get into college coaching. And that was like May. And then I started to apply for college jobs. I probably applied for over 150 jobs before I got my first job in September at Robert Morris University. And fast forward 10 years, I was an assistant coach at the Division I level. Now I'm the head coach at Augusta University, a Division II institution.
Coach Stafford-Odom, if you want to go next.
Sure. I don't think my plight is as colorful as yours. I didn't ever envision myself being a college coach or a coach, really. I just loved the game so much. It was all about playing. Never even thought in high school to foresee, me impacting lives and coaching. But as a player in high school in a little town called Los Angeles, California, the men's basketball coach influenced me. And he would always say, you're going to be a coach. You should be a coach and this and that. And so as I grew up, Westchester High School in LA, I would always play with the guys and had the ear of a lot of the male players. In the summertime, we didn't have a lot of pickup for women. So a lot of the players that are my age or a little younger than me would come to my high school, and I'd organize, pickup for women. A couple of courts going on. during the times of hands-off where D1 coaches couldn't touch the players. I remember Nikki Blue, Noelle Quinn, Lisa Willis. Those were players that played for UCLA, close to my school. Well, during the time that the coach couldn't touch them, they would come to my gym. Coach would talk to me, communicate with me, with someone that had recruited me as a player. So she, would just ask questions. What are they working on? Whatever. So she saw that they were excited about coming with me. Eventually, she told me, when I have a spot on my staff, I'm gonna hire you. After playing a few years overseas, I came back, coached my high school, and from high school, Kathy Olivier, true to her word, when a position opened up at UCLA, she hired me. So from that point on, I realized I really could still enjoy basketball, like you said, Coach, be around the sports, not be a 9 to 5, not have to suit and boot every time, but actually come to work with some sweats on from time to time, and and impart my knowledge on the game. So that's when I realized, after a few years into it, I'm a coach. That's how it happened for me. And currently, I'm the head coach of North Carolina Central, an HBCU in the MEAC conference. I've had stints at UCLA from the start. Then I went from UCLA to Duke, from Duke to University of North Carolina, back to California, Concordia University in Irvine. I was my first head coaching job. And then from Concordia here in year 4 at North Carolina Central.
And last but not least, Coach Basco, if you want to go ahead and give us your intro.
I don't know how I follow both of them. I don't have any big names around me, but so I went to college at the University of Scranton in Pennsylvania, D3 school. Did not think about coaching, just went to play basketball. We had a very successful career while there, got to play in 2 Final Fours as a player. So I went on to Temple to be a graduate assistant in their actually marketing department of athletics. Thought I wanted to work in the administration side. Realized totally missed basketball my first year out there. So my coach at Scranton actually invited me back up to be a part-time assistant. And kind of like the other 2 coaches said, I was hooked. Couldn't get away from it. Loved being in the gym, loved recruiting. It's my passion. So from there, I got the opportunity to become a full-time assistant at Gettysburg College. I was there for 3 years. And then I got to become a head coach at Salisbury. And this is my 10th season there. I had such a great experience as a player that I just wanted to be a coach so badly so I could influence players and have them to have the same pride in their program and same experiences I had. So that's me.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank the 3 of you again for being with us tonight. And so I'm going to get into the questions now. And if we want to keep the same kind of answer, answering one after another, that would be great. So my first question is, what are you expecting coaches to have or to bring during an interview? Whether it be portfolio, plays, anything like that. What are you kind of expecting coaches to have physically with them and then to also speak about during an interview?
I can start. I think it's changed. Currently, I'm going through interview processes as we speak, and it's definitely differing from what it was, a year or 2 ago, as far as face-to-face contact, being able to interact in person. A lot of things I'm doing now is on Zoom, via phone call, and I did go through a stint last week where my players were doing postseason spring workouts. So as part of like the interview process, I just told, an individual to come on down and watch what we're doing, see what what we have with, and just literally taking the opportunity to interact with the players. And, I gave them the opportunity to speak up as we did drills and kind of wanted to see how they would connect, how my players would respond, how their commands were given and how they were received. A resume always precedes all of that. I'm now specifically into questioning. I'm in a position now and in a stage in my coaching career where I know exactly what I need, what I don't have, and what I was missing the seasons before. So I'm able to be very specific as far as asking, hey, are you able to do a scouting report, or are you, what is your process like, and how do you conduct your film sessions and teaching, players? So I'm asking specific questions because I know those are the weak areas in my on my staff. So I asked basically exactly what I'm going to ask of that coach, in addition to some other things I want to know specifically. Are you able to handle these tasks?
I would say I like for the person to bring a copy of a scouting report, or I would assign a team to them and have them scout, maybe our team. Also sample workouts. If my players are on campus, maybe I would have them put my players through a workout, but at least be able to talk about in detail how they would put together a workout for guards, posts, wings, point guards, so forth. Also, we do not have a strength and conditioning coach. I was really looking for somebody with that background. So if they had experience with it, I had them to bring a individual workout or summer plan or season plan. And also if they have a copy of an edit, if they're a former assistant, I know some, or experience with some type of editing system, if they could shoot me a copy of it or whatever.
So it might be a little different for us because, I have a GA and I don't hire, I hire a GA, but I don't have any full-time assistants or anything along that lines. But being at the Division III level, I'd had the opportunity to be on a lot of hiring committees for other head coaches. For instance, we're in the process of hiring a new swim coach, and I'm on that committee. And I think one of the things, especially at our level, to be hired as a head coach, is making sure you bring something showing your recruiting plan, and doing your homework, looking at the roster, and showing us that you've done the research and know what you need to bring in to kind of change this program, maybe where some of the weaknesses are, in years to come, maybe a depth chart of, what positions you're going to need to bring in. So I think just to go off a little different direction as the other two coaches, I think for us, because we don't have scholarships or anything like that, it's really important to have a plan when it comes to recruiting and knowing the school and how you're going to attack that area as well, and who's going to fit and where you're going to look for those type of players that fit with your university.
All right, so those are some really great, things to be prepared for and bring to an interview. During this said interview, is there anything that the person you're interviewing that they can immediately do to turn you off during the interview? Is there an answer? Is there something that they physically do? Like is there something, and if so, what is it? Or what have you been a part of and you've seen or you've heard about that really, I see some laughs. So it really, sounds like some good stories. What kind of, really just was like, you know what, we're just going to head in a totally different direction right now.
Like, you mean like immediately?
Yeah.
You guys can start. I think of a few. I'm going to filter the ones I'm going to say. So you guys go first.
I'll say, don't ask me right away about money. If you ask about money right away, I'm probably turned off.
I can agree with that. Sounds thirsty. I guess for me, not listening, like cutting me off or something like that, or like I have to repeat myself, or I tend to pick up that you don't comprehend well. Something, I'll say it that way. Yeah, it's kind of like a turnoff. Like, did you not understand? So those things are turnoffs. Or honestly, first impressions are lasting ones. So if it's a physical face-to-face meeting and how they dress, how they carry themselves, stereotypically, yeah, I mean, those can be turnoffs or red flags, so to speak. So, and I like the coach that decides to ask me, hey, how should I dress? That's just being on the safe side. Because if you come overdressed, also you kind of looking crazy. I'm like, you should have asked me. I'm wearing shorts. So I just like the person that is not ashamed to ask questions, but is also can prove himself to be a listener.
I would agree. And I would say how they communicate. Are you communicating to me like I'm one of the players, or I am a future boss or, yeah, I think that is key. I had a situation where someone was talking to me like I was one of the players. So instantly I was turned off and I was like, I'm not saying they had to like bow down to me, but this a level of respect, professionalism was important for me.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's huge, because I know I'm in my 4th year teaching. So I've only gone on interviews for teaching. I went on 2. So that was really it. So that was a question I really wanted to just, get some input on. So on the total opposite side of the spectrum, what can someone do that you're interviewing? What can they do to stand out and be, someone that you're like, what, they weren't really, I wasn't too sure about them, but like now they're your number one person that you want to hire. What can someone do to really like make themselves stand out?
That's a good question. I think I have a pretty good answer because it just impressed me recently. And you kind of hit on it, Coach, just knowing the history of my school, showing me that you've done the research to legitimize the fact that you can actually go get kids and players that fit a system and that won't feel uncomfortable in the environment. I mean, you hit me with some stuff that I, barely know about as far as my university goes. Then it's impressive, very impressive. You go, that shows me you'll go above and beyond to seek knowledge and, to impress, so to speak.
I think for me too, I appreciate someone that's authentic. I think people can come in and, they seem almost too well rehearsed, and they have all the right answers maybe, but I'm not getting to know who they are. And especially if it's someone you're going to work with all the time, you need to kind of learn their personality and if it's someone that you're going to click with. And I think being authentic and giving real answers, not just the answer that you think they want to hear, because I rather know what you're really like, for good or bad, just so I know if we can work together or not. So I think being authentic and being you and showing your personality, that's always really impressive to me.
I would agree. I want somebody that that's gonna be them, and like I just feel their energy. I'm not saying like they're super energetic, but just their energy, their vibe, the way they communicate. Probably an emphasis on building relationships too. That's something that really stands out with me. The more and more I coach, I realize it's about the relationships more than the X's and O's and how they connect with people and just thinking outside the box. I want somebody that's going to challenge me as a coach or really get me thinking in a conversation. Like I might ask them, how you feel about this, and how they elaborate, and just vice versa. Just going back and forth, conversating.
Yeah, those are all really good things that I feel like sometimes get overlooked in trying to prepare for an interview. So I'm glad that you all kind of took different angles and said that. My next question was, who all is involved with the hiring and interview process at your schools? Is it, athletic director meeting with the committee, other coaches on staff, and who kind of has, the final say, if anyone?
So I'm at a Division III school, and it's also a state school. So might be different than private schools because we have to be very by the book and open to everyone. So we have a committee, and the committee kind of narrows down the candidates that we bring on campus. Once we do that, our AD approves of who, NHR approves of who we want to bring on campus. When they do come on campus, they meet with the committee, they have time with the athletic director. We have an open session where all the other coaches and staff members can go and ask them questions. And they usually also meet with the players as well. And maybe we have opportunity with somebody in admissions just to try and get them to understand that concept too. But when it comes down to it, the committee's job at our school is just to put forth who is acceptable candidates. And it really comes down to the athletic director making the final decision.
At North Carolina Central and most places I've been, ultimately as the head coach, I have the ultimate say with the approval well, not approval, but the consent and input that I welcome of, some of my peer coaches. In this situation, Lavelle Moten is the men's coach, and he's been doing this for a while with a lot of success. So, we've established a relationship, and, at times I get his input on some things, some people, some personalities, some things I may have missed on, some things I should target on. I do like my potentials to meet my athletic director. They usually ask about them and the relationship I have with my athletic director, my sport administrators. And like I alluded to before, it's a little different now because a lot less interaction because of the pandemic. But I think I do a pretty good job of keeping my administration well informed of who I'm considering and their backgrounds and everything. So when and if they, meet them later, they're not total strangers. So ultimately I get the final say, but I do think wisdom would allow me to get some input of some people that are around. And on my staff in particular, I have a director of basketball operations that's, she's supreme, and she knows me. She's able to sit back to kind of interject whether she thinks the personalities will clash, whether they will enhance, and things like that. She just gives me the insight in her perspective of how they can relate to the players, myself, and then other administrative bodies. It's a collaboration of thoughts, and ultimately I get to say yay or nay.
It looks like, I think Coach Green just came back. Coach Green, did you hear the question, or do you need me to?
I did not hear anything. I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's okay. Technology has been something for this whole year. But my question just was, who all is involved with the hiring and interview process at your respective school? Is it the athletic director, committee, meeting with the committee, or the coaches on staff? Just who's involved with that process?
I involve my athletic director, my head men's basketball coach, men's assistant, and well as my players in the interview process.
Okay, so I think overall between the three, just a really wide range, and it's really good to just know who could potentially be in that room and who you're going to be meeting with. The last question I have is, how do you feel about candidates continuing to reach out after their interview, or have people call on their behalf in terms of putting in a good word? So kind of where do you stand on, that after that initial follow-up email, how do you feel about the communication once their interview already happens?
You mean, Carolyn, you mean from the actual interviewee, or just different people?
Yeah, from the actual interview.
Calling on that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. I think, I don't know. I got to check myself. Sometimes I'm easily annoyed, but I think that's a great form of communication. And it gives me a sign that sometimes, if they want to follow up, if I haven't done, not the job of following up, but where am I going with this? Because if they do it too soon and haven't given me enough time, then I'm annoyed. But I like the thought of, again, the boldness and taking the initiative to follow up perhaps with a fake other additional piece of information just to kind of keep me fresh, keep themselves fresh on my mind. I do not have a problem with that as long as it's done respectfully and professionally. As far as you talked about other people calling on their behalf as well. I got a lot of calls for this one particular candidate, and luckily there were people that I highly respected. So it kind of made me stop and think twice, and even more graciously about the individual, because I'm like, okay, these are people calling that really are taking their time out of doing something very important. They're I guess I want to say prestigious people that are taking the time to do that. And most of us, we're not going to make blanket calls if it's not somebody that's well-deserved. So I think it helped this person. I think it's a good thing.
It depends for me. I only had to hire 2 assistants in my career, so it's still kind of fresh for me. I don't mind. It just depends. Sometimes they can overdo it, And then sometimes it's beneficial also if they can connect me with other people, or other people reach out and I can really dig into their background and learn more about them. So it just all depends. It's a case by case situation, but I do appreciate them following up after the initial interview.
Yeah, I agree. I think the initial follow-up just shows that they have the passion and they're really excited and committed to wanting to have this job. So that doesn't bother me, you know, again, as long as it's respectful and not pushy. And I think I agree with what Coach said about other people like connecting with us about them. I tend to take more into people that I know or have a relationship with or knows more about my program. If people call and they don't have a clue about what my program is about, then it's kind of like even with recruits with high school coaches, and they're like telling you how great their player is and they don't know anything about your program or how you play. So it's kind of the same along the same lines, you know, as long as it's somebody that, you know, I can trust and really understands what we're looking for, what we're about, then I think it's definitely helpful.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. Those are my 5 questions. I want to open it up to anyone here in the Zoom. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat or you can unmute and ask yourself. Totally up to you.
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
For these 3 coaches, how do you all take into the effect of the particular assistant coach that you're interviewing, as far as their relationships with like youth clubs, basketball clubs, and high schools in certain geographical locations? Let's say for North Carolina Central and Augusta, you all are in the South. Do you particularly look for assistant coaches that are from that geographical location more so than possibly from a West Coast or East Coast coach?
Well thought out question for me. No, I am not pigeonholing area or connections well, connections matter, but I'm a California kid. I'm a West Coast kid all day. And I think some of my best work when I was on the West Coast came from the East Coast and vice versa. So I don't want to tie anyone's hands and limit our opportunities by restricting, you know, who I'm looking for. So for me, absolutely not. I think the broader your range in relationships, the more you will help our program.
I would say I do look for someone that has connections to the Southeast because my budget is a little different than a Division I budget. So I do want someone with strong ties to the area. If they have ties to other areas, I would consider it. You know, I guess it depends on what type of worker are they trying to build relationships. So maybe they bring something else to the table that I'm willing to hire them despite not having the connections to the Southeast.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, being in Division III, we're recruiting at my school more regionally than nationally. I don't think it's a deal breaker for me, but I do think that they need to have knowledge of where we're getting our kids from, you know, in relation to what our school offers, you know, in state compared to out of state tuition, since we aren't offering scholarships. But I don't think it's a deal breaker. Like right now, she's from Connecticut, which is a little bit further away. So she doesn't, but she's a hard worker and she's committed. She played in New Jersey. So it's not a deal breaker, but I think it's helpful if for my situation, if they have some connections in the area.
Thank you all.
Did anyone else have another question?
I'll go. Thank you, 3 coaches, for sharing the information. My name is Coach Chris Burnett. I'm a head coach in Cincinnati, Ohio for high school. I have 2 questions. First question is, would it be a turn on or a turn off if a candidate in the interview process came off a little nervous but high energy, and you knew that they wanted to be there and work for your program and they knew everything? It was just like they were really excited and high energy. And then the second one is the part off of that. You know, if you decided to go in a different route, is it would you like to still build off that relationship, or is it kind of like just dead?
I'm, first of all, hello, and thank you for joining, Coach. I don't mind nervous energy. I think in many ways I've been gifted with discernment, and I can see through that and see passion and see heart and desire. And that's a turn on for me, because if you're nervous, but you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, that shows me this is something that you really have the desire to be doing and want to do. So I kind of like that. And the type of person I am, I'm going to try to help us work through us being nervous, because most of the time I'm nervous too, believe it or not. So I don't have a problem with that. I believe in long-term relationships. I mean, unless there's an obvious not connection, the relationships I have, interviewee, former player, recruit that comes, recruit that doesn't come, I would hope that there's something genuine inside of me, and vice versa, that we find a connection that lasts for a long time. Just because we have differences or disagree with, this is the place you should be, I should work this way, whatever, I would hope that there's some authenticity in the relationship that we can continue and build on, and maybe even rectify some things and clarify some things that why we thought we were turned off in the first place. Oh, I thought you meant this, my bad. And those are the things that sometimes is the start of the best relationships.
Thank you, Coach.
Being nervous doesn't bother me. Heck, I'm nervous right now. Being on this makes me nervous. I'd rather actually somebody be a little nervous than overly confident or cocky. You know what I mean? I think that's more of a turnoff sometimes when they come across, too aggressive maybe. Then, nervous, I think it means they care. It's kind of like when I talk to my players, like they're nervous for a game, it's because it means something to them. They're not nervous. It's kind of like, what are we doing this for almost? But so that doesn't bother me at all. And like Coach said, I'm probably nervous too. But when it comes to relationships, if things don't work out, sure, people, God has a plan. People are supposed to be certain places, and so any way that I can help or somebody can help somebody else out, I'm all for it.
Thank you.
I was trying to reflect on a situation where I interviewed somebody that was nervous, but it made me think about a recent recruiting visit. I had a very talented kid on campus, and she was nervous because she was so excited about the opportunity. I knew she could play. I just wanted to see how she could fit in with the team, but I wouldn't judge someone based on their nervousness. It's probably just an indication they really, really want it, and I think relationships are important, and some people that I didn't hire in the past and I'm still in communication with, and I try to mentor them and help them out. And so it doesn't end there, just keeping the line of communication open.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, coaches.
Hey guys, I have a question. Sorry I have my screen off, but I have 2 toddlers running behind me, so I didn't want them to run across, but I appreciate all the things that you've been saying. So introduce myself, Trey Montgomery, assistant coach on the men's side at Penn in the Ivy League. And I just have a question that I think could relate on both on the men and women's side. When you guys are looking at candidates, particularly for your staff, where when it comes to gut instinct and intuition, which women tend to be a lot smarter than guys, where does
this boy
that
is good? This boy is good.
Where where's the I guess you could say barometer when it comes to measuring whether or not you guys would take a risk with somebody that's younger, hungrier, may not have as much experience, but you could definitely see the passion, whereas you might weigh that option against somebody who's a little bit more experienced, but you may be not sure. Like, how would you judge whether or not to take a risk on somebody that's younger versus somebody with experience?
I think it's how the person would compliment me. Like when I hire an assistant, like I only have one full-time assistant, what is my immediate need? What do I need to balance me out? So that could determine some things. I know the second assistant I hired last year, I needed some experience. I needed some maturity. So it was a little different from my first hire. I was looking for someone that has some Division II experience. But I do want a younger assistant that could connect with my players. It just depends on what I need. If I had to hire an assistant right now, I would evaluate what I need going into next season. What are our weaknesses? What do we need to get better at? What do I need somebody to devote more time to? And that's something they're really good at. So it all depends.
I like Coach's answer. Coach Trey, first of all, you flossing with the background championship picture. I see you. But I do congratulate you. But I'd say similar. It's about the need and how I balanced. For the last couple of years, I don't think I did a good job of balancing my veteranship with somebody that I am trying to mentor and bring along. And I won't make that same mistake again, but I think I did a disservice to two lesser experienced coaches because I wasn't, as the veteran, able to give as much and pour into as much as I could have. But with a multiplicity of staff members, I think I could have balanced it a little better. So everybody's learning from the next, and we're coaching up, we're coaching down, and everyone gets something. So I definitely don't have a problem with, as you'd say, taking risks. Well, I don't call it a risk, but making those decisions as long as I'm able to balance it and everyone is benefiting at the end of it.
So I only hire a GA, so they're always young. So I have no problem with that. But like I said, I've been on hiring committees for head coaches at my level, and I'm always rooting for, the young assistant who's just hungry. You know what I mean? I think just because I think I was that person, so I just have, a soft spot for them. And I think it goes a long way, and you always need someone that's going to give you that first shot to be a head coach if that's what you're looking to move up. And I think, like Coach said, I don't know if it's considered a risk, because I think sometimes they're bringing in a fresh energy. They're not jaded yet by being a head coach and the wear it gets on you sometimes. So I think that's my input on that part.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? I have one more if no one else has one.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm Abby Owings. I'm an assistant at Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky. Just had a question about when you're interviewing a particular candidate, do you look at their playing career at all? Is that something that you kind of look at? Just because I kind of have a hard time whether I bring that up, if that's something I talk about, or do I more so focus on my coaching path and what I've kind of done there. I'm not sure if you have any input on that.
I recently had a staff of like 3 former WNBA players, including myself. And I was prideful. I felt like no one else in the country had this. This is great. This is awesome. And then I had a dear friend of mine who I think I mentor. She said, Coach, do you only look at players? No, do you disqualify me if I didn't play in the WNBA? So I felt bad. And I'm like, no, not at all. And to be quite honest, that was not the makeup of my best staff for several different reasons. So the direct answer, Coach Owings, to your question is, I don't look at that background. I think a player's background helps and assists, in teaching and maybe relating to the kids and them, respecting you. However, I feel like every individual goes into it and you demand your own respect. So you get that either way, player or non-player. And the thing is, sometimes as former players, you can't break habits that may not necessarily be good habits. That could be a negative thing. It could be a positive thing. But for the most part, to me, there's no guarantee that every ex-player is a good coach, because I've seen some terrible ones. And I've seen some of the best coaches have been some maybe mediocre players, or you just have truly become a student of the game and you turn out to be the best coach. So I think it's a fit for everyone differently. But for me, no shade on the non-professional athlete, or if your playing career didn't go as far as, the next person. No shade on that for me. My son trying to get camera time in the background.
For me, it could go either way. I mean, I think that if it's something that fuels you and had a huge impact on you, and that's something you want to talk about and bring up, totally. Like, let's talk about if you've been a champion, like, and you want to talk about, how that fuels you, then I'm definitely interested in hearing about it. But I don't think it would hold anything against you if you didn't have anything like that to share. And it's funny that you bring this up, because I was just talking with my assistant the other day about how very rarely can you find a women's coach, a woman who didn't play, but yet on the men's side, it happens all the time. I can tell you there's so many men's coaches that didn't play in college, and then, and they're coaching. Yet women, if you didn't play, I don't know if you have the same opportunities. And that's why, I know, Carolyn, that's why you're breaking out and trying to get this done. And I know it's probably harder for you than maybe for men, because I think it's more accepted. And I think that maybe has to be something that we consider on the female side, is just looking more of who's students of the game and getting it done and putting in the work and grinding to try and get where they can get. Because like Coach said, I even played with some great players and they'd be awful coaches. So, and they were all Americans, but they have no business coaching. So I think it's a mix for me, but I think we do need to normalize, having women coaches that maybe didn't play.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Any more questions? My last question would just be, what is an aspect of coaching that you wish you had focused on more when you first started? Whether it be leadership, whether it be whatever it is, whether it just be communication, it could be something really, really small, but what is something you wish you had, started focusing on a little earlier in your career?
I wish I would have asked my head coaches for more intel into what their jobs are. Because I know for me, moving that one seat over, I was like, wow, like it was so much I didn't even think about. And for me now with my assistant, I try to expose her to as much as possible. I would have just asked for more, like, can I sit in on some head coaches calls, or evaluate the budget, just anything, everything, whatever. I just wish I would have asked for more as an assistant, and seeking it out. We just kind of do our jobs, but what more could I have done as far as asking my coach to expose me to more within the program?
I would agree with that answer. I think when you move over to the head coach's seat, you realize, what I've realized is that I feel like less coaching, because I'm focused so much more on the administrative things, the meetings, the managerial sides, and it takes away a lot of what I enjoyed the most. The relationships, the like sincere. I still have relationships, but they're a little bit different. If you think about teams maybe that you've played on, or teams that you've coached, most of the kids have better relationships with the assistants. and oftentimes right now I'm in this seat like, man, I want that relationship. So I miss those aspects of it. And then it's a two-edged sword for me, because the relationship that I formed as an assistant, that's who I am as a person. So I still have those relationships as a head coach, but it's more draining because I've also got so many other things I've got to focus on. So I can't, give as much as I would, or it's just draining. So I wish the head coach had told me that. And if they did tell me, I think I didn't hear it, because they might have just been trying to hate in my mind at that time. But it's a genuine advice. Be a superstar where you are. And every level, be a superstar at that. So if you're that assistant, be the greatest. And without thinking about it, you'll advance in your time and your season.
And just to piggyback on that, I think that's why it's important for me only having one full-time assistant, is to have somebody that can develop relationships with the players. Because as a head coach, it's hard because we have so many other things on our plate, and they have to command a level of respect from them. Not trying to be their friend, but having that relationship with them and being able to communicate, them be an extension of me, repeating what I say, maybe in a different way that they understand it, getting the message across from them to them.
I'm going to kind of go in a different direction because I think back 10 years when I first became a head coach, and there's like 50 million things I'd probably do differently now. But I think one of the biggest things is patience and grace with myself and also with my players. I think when I first become a head coach, it was like, let's go, 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 like has to happen now. Like, and it was almost like too much. Like it wasn't creating those relationships and the process. It wasn't as much about the process. It was about like the outcome right away. And, if I wasn't getting it, I was all hard on me. I was hard on my players, and that just wasn't good for anybody. And I think now, and even like COVID has helped me, I think, with that. And the season, we had a great season, but we only played a couple of games. But I think, just having that patience and learning to be grateful, I think, is what this whole season has done for all of us, and has made us all appreciate our jobs and what we do. And I think our players being grateful for the opportunities we have. And I think that's something I would hope to keep on my next 10 years.
Awesome. Well, I want to say a huge thank you again to everyone who's on the Zoom right now, especially to our three coaches, our three panelists. And I learned a lot and a lot of different perspectives, which is always great. So I just want to say thank you again for taking your time out to do this. And Lamar is gonna get us out of here.
Well, I want to thank you, Coach Stafford-Odom, Coach Green, Coach Basco, for the wonderful job you did in educating everyone tonight. To the guests that's on the Zoom, I thank you. For all the ones who come on to all six, and to the new guests, hopefully you guys come back. We do this every 2 weeks. It's all about educating individuals who want to get into the profession. It's very hard, as Coach was talking about earlier. On the women's side, I mean, that was the one thing I told Carolyn. It's going to be very hard not being a former player. But if you stick with it, there's a possibility. You just got to network. So hopefully you guys will come back. And then I want to thank Carolyn for doing a tremendous job once again. I mean, I've seen the growth from when she started, almost 2-3 months now, from the first one to now. I get comments all the time about how well she's doing. So I want to say, awesome job again, a tremendous job again for what she's done for What's the Game Plan. And, and the Unmasked brand, thanks you wholeheartedly for creating your path. And I want to say, to everyone, have a great evening. We look forward to seeing you on the next Roundtable, which will be 2 weeks from now. And I want you to take care and stay safe.
Have a good night.